Hi, guys. And before we get into today's story, I need to warn you. This one is going to destroy you emotionally and then slowly piece you back together. We're talking about a 6-year-old girl who named herself because nobody else bothered to. A child who set fire to the only roof over her head just to survive another day. A girl born into a story that was never meant to let her live. The manga is called Born as the Daughter of the Wicked Woman. And trust me, that title alone doesn't prepare you for what's inside. Stay with me, because this one is worth every single minute. So after about a year following the birth of this adorable purple-haired baby, she suddenly gets all her memories from a previous life flooding back. And what she realizes is that she's not just anywhere. She's living inside a novel her friend once recommended to her. The kind of novel with a clean, satisfying ending where the female lead wins, the villainess dies, and the main couple is babies and rides off into a happily ever after. You know the type. But here's the twist that makes your stomach drop. Our girl hasn't been reborn as the heroine. She's been reborn as the villainess's daughter. And the thing about this so-called villainess is that she was never really the villain. She was the male lead's wife. They were married for 3 years, genuinely, before a woman entered their lives as a servant and started an affair with him. A home wrecker and a cheating man doing what they do, while the actual wife fought tooth and nail to protect her marriage, her title, her dignity. And the novel called her the villain for it, because the story was always going to favor the female lead. That's how it was written. The Duke locked his own wife in a tower, and she wasn't alone when she got there. She was pregnant. While she's nursing this tiny baby, the Duchess is barely present. She's sobbing, grieving, completely consumed by the husband who threw her away. And by the time our girl is old enough to walk, they separate her from her mother without ceremony and send her to an orphanage operated by the Empire. She would later say she wished she could go back to the tower. She's 6 years old at this point. 6. And the workers at the orphanage mistreat her constantly, purely because she's the villainess's daughter. Even the director does nothing. The only person who shows her any warmth is a new worker named Yulin, who treats her gently, almost like a mother would. Almost. Then one day she's taken back to the tower to say goodbye. Her mother is frail, barely there, and even in these final moments, her entire being is still reaching for the Duke, still searching for a man who locked her away and forgot about her. And our girl stands there, invisible again, watching her mother look through her like she's made of glass. But she speaks up. She tells her mother that she named herself Daphne, that she understands her mother's longing, that she doesn't blame her for wanting to be a wife more than a mother, and she holds her hand and tells her she'll never forget her, and she hopes she finds peace from all the pain. And at last, her mother sees her, finally sees her. She tries to say Daphne's name, opens her mouth to say it, and dies with tears running down her face. Daphne weeps beside her, and this awful guard drags her away while smiling, actually smiling, as he tells her that her mother will be punished in hell now. And Daphne looks around at every face in that room, every guard, every servant, and not one of them shows a single trace of remorse for a child who just lost her mother. She already knows what happens next in the novel. The villainess's daughter gets beaten to death the following day, and as soon as they step outside the tower, the guard shoves her to the ground. Everyone stares at her like she's something unpleasant they stepped in, until Yulin runs over and helps her up. Yulin notices her injured knee and says she'll take Daphne somewhere first before returning to the orphanage. And who does Daphne find standing in front of her but a man with navy blue hair and gold eyes, identical to hers? Her father, the Duke. She begins trembling. She's terrified to even look at him, but she thinks fast. If she can get close to him, maybe she can avoid dying tomorrow. So she extends her little hand, and with the most courageous smile she can manage, she calls him father. He turns his back on her. He doesn't even recognize her as his daughter. He decides Freya must have sold herself and had a child with someone else, because that's a more comfortable thought than responsibility. He examines Freya's body, tells the guard to dispose of her like she never existed, and walks away from a child with his own eyes. Daphne is furious. And honestly, same. Back at the orphanage, she gets another gut punch when Yulin's warm personality completely evaporates. The kindness was performance. Yulin wanted a position as a nanny in the Duke's household, and Daphne was never anything more than a stepping stone. Not a single person is genuinely on her side. The other orphans start mocking her because her mother just died, and Daphne tries to retreat to her room, tries to absorb it quietly, but then she stops herself. Why should she? She turns around, laughs in that unsettling way that only someone who's been through too much can, and calmly informs the children that she just became an orphan because her mother died. But they didn't become orphans because someone died. They were abandoned. There's a difference. Savage. Absolutely savage. And I respect every word of it. But Yulian grabs her and scolds her for being cruel. The same woman who stood silently watching the bullying moments before. Daphne goes to her room and cries herself out, and then Yulian comes in and locks her inside, saying she'll be going somewhere tomorrow to reflect on her behavior. That somewhere is where Daphne gets beaten to death. And that's when something shifts. She refuses. She's done feeling sorry for herself, done accepting a fate written by someone else. She is not going to sit in this room and wait to die. And there's a silver lining she wouldn't have found had she escaped earlier. She got to hold her mother's hand. She got to say goodbye. She's grateful for that. Now she thinks clearly. She remembers that the story has a second half. The Duke's legitimate daughter goes on an adventure to a neighboring empire, makes a friend, and has a happy ending. The family that destroyed her mother is written a fairy tale. She is written a corpse. Not anymore. She smiles, adjusts her bed. Her room connects to a storage area through a hidden door. They isolated her from the other children. Thought it was punishment, but it's her exit. Before she goes, she needs a plan. In the second half of the novel, a boy tries to assassinate a powerful noblewoman named Chloe Benedito, fails, and gets adopted by her instead. Eventually, he marries the Duke's daughter. Daphne intends to stop that from happening, and to do it, she needs Chloe. Chloe grew up in this very orphanage. She was sold to a black market by a friend, who is now the orphanage director. Everything Chloe became, the power, the wealth, the status, she clawed out of that nightmare through sheer will, driven by the need for revenge. And the documents proving what the director did, hidden in his office, in a drawer, with the key stashed in a nearby planter, because the director is exactly that sloppy. While everyone sleeps, Daphne sneaks in, finds the key, finds the documents. She can't read the alphabet used in this world. So she grabs everything, plus a stamp that looks important just because it's hidden. Then footsteps. She dives under the couch, holds her breath. The director and Yulian walk in. They talk about Daphne. They're also, apparently, secretly dating. Daphne files that information away and waits for them to leave. Then she spots a lamp, and she gets an idea. She goes back to her room, places clothing under the blanket to look like a sleeping body, leaves her shoe at the door to suggest she's inside. Then she takes that lamp, goes to the storage room full of oil, and sets it on fire. She watches the flames begin to catch, knowing the building will be damaged, knowing the children will be frightened. And she feels exactly nothing as she walks away. This is how she survives. This is how she starts over. She finds a hidden passage leading to the Benedito estate, remembers the passcode, and steps through. The door opens. The place is quiet. And before she can gather herself, a young man with green hair appears, startled, asking how she got in. Daphne pulls herself together and announces at full volume that she wants to negotiate a deal with the head of this merchant company. Chloe Benedito arrives, clearly irritated, and looks through the documents Daphne brought. She's unimpressed. Any child off the street could find these, she says, and she looks at Daphne's distinctive hair and puts it together immediately. This is the Villainess's daughter. Taking her in is a liability. She hands the documents to the green-haired man and tells Daphne to leave. Then the orphanage fire is spotted in the distance. Chloe panics for the children, and Daphne tells her calmly that she started that fire. She faked her death in her room. She locked the doors so no one would be hurt. She knew she was going to be beaten to death if she stayed. This is the only way she survives. Chloe stares at her. Then she changes her mind. She introduces herself. Daphne introduces herself. And Chloe asks what she wants. Daphne looks her in the eye with complete seriousness and says, "I want to live." Chloe gives her a test. She wants a red flower, one that grows outside the estate gates, in the cold and the dark, in terrain full of monsters and wild animals. She explains all the dangers clearly and asks if Daphne still wants to go. Daphne says yes. A young man named Lennox Benedito brings her shoes, wraps a robe around her, holds her tiny hand as they walk to the gate, and then she goes in alone. The darkness is immediate and overwhelming. Every sound feels like a threat. A wolf howls and she runs, trips, hits the ground. Pain shoots through her feet. She lies there for a moment, feeling completely out of options. Then a purple butterfly appears, circling her slowly, in the cold, when it shouldn't be there at all. The same shade of purple as her mother's hair. She gets up, follows it, and there, at the top of a cliff in moonlight, is the flower. She climbs carefully, the butterfly keeping pace beside her, until she reaches it and plucks it from the stone. Her first instinct is to tell her mother, "I found it." She thanks the butterfly, and then her injured leg gives out and she falls. Lennox sees it from a distance and rushes toward her. When Daphne wakes up, a pink-haired man with glasses is sitting beside her, handing her water. The flower was already delivered to his mother, Chloe. Lennox brought Daphne back. This is Ricardo Benedito, and he's been caring for her for several days. Her legs need more treatment. Daphne asks, completely calmly, whether she'll ever be able to use them again. Ricardo grabs her hands and tells her he's going to make sure she recovers. And then he says he's her big brother now. She tells him she doesn't have a brother. Chloe walks in, relieved and apologetic, saying she expected Daphne to be too scared to come back with the flower. She never imagined a 6-year-old would actually do it. The flower, she explains, is a statia, rare, nearly impossible to cultivate, and able to heal pain. And then Chloe asks what Daphne wants in return. Daphne says she wants to be Chloe's successor, not the real heir, just the title. She needs it to prevent the male lead from taking that position, so the story can't continue on the original path. But Chloe pushes back. Why not just ask for money? And Daphne explains, firmly, voice steady. Everyone wants her gone because she's the villainess's daughter. She refuses to accept that. She wants to live. She wants to be happier than the people who prayed for her to suffer, even if it's a losing fight. That gets through to Chloe. She opens up about her own suffering, her own need for revenge. The documents Daphne brought will serve as evidence against the director. And in this moment, two people who have both been made into survivors by cruelty recognize something in each other. Chloe decides not just to help her. She names her successor. Then she pulls Daphne into a hug. Daphne Benedito, their family's newest and smallest member. It's a new day, and Lennox is carrying Daphne because the wheelchair isn't ready yet. His kindness makes her anxious. The last person who was kind to her was Yuline, but Lennox explains gently that her hair turning white is likely from the shock and trauma she endured. And Daphne smiles a little, saying that while she lost her mother's hair color, she now has her new mother's. New life, new hair. They sit down to eat, and Daphne's eyes are wide and bright, because this is probably her first real meal. Then Chloe puts on a serious face and says she has conditions. Daphne braces herself. The first condition is that Daphne keeps her body healthy. The second is that she thinks of at least 5 things she wants to do. That's it. That's all Chloe's asking. And Daphne, who prepared herself for labor, tasks, obligations, just sits there stunned, because someone is asking what she wants for the first time in her entire life. Lennox begins cutting her hair, and she tells him, offhand, that she used to cut it herself at the orphanage because the other children mocked her for the purple. She adds, almost as a footnote, that there were worse things than that. Lennox starts crying. She has no idea why he's upset. She doesn't understand why Ricardo is spending his time researching magic to cure her legs. She doesn't understand why Chloe treats her like an actual daughter. Part of her believes it's real, but it's so unfamiliar that she starts crying too and blurts out that she's greedy and she doesn't want them to be nice to her because one day they'll stop and she'll be worse off for having hoped. She ends up with a fever. When she wakes, she can hear Ricardo scolding Lennox for not comforting her. She hears Chloe say she's proud of Daphne for not revealing the stamp she kept hidden, and she closes her eyes and thinks, please don't let this be a dream. When Chloe comes in and wipes her face with a warm cloth, Daphne cries again and asks why they're being so good to her. Then she covers her mouth, terrified that Chloe will hate her for being a crybaby. So Chloe picks her up and carries her to a room that is entirely hers. A wardrobe full of clothes, a dressing table, a doll waiting on the bed. Daphne cries again, obviously, and tells Chloe how much she loves it. She's scared to love it because she's scared to get used to it. And Chloe holds her face, looks her in the eye, and says, "You are my daughter. I will continue this as your mother. Focus on your health, enjoy life, and then chase your goals." And Daphne, the girl who named herself the girl nobody saw, asks softly if she can call Chloe Mom. The next day, Daphne starts learning to write. The brothers show up and fold her into a hug. And this time she lets them. She doesn't pull away. She just lets it happen. Days pass. The family argues over who gets to spend time with her. Daphne smiles more. This is her life now. This is what she fought for. Then one night, while she's doing homework, after accidentally drinking coffee her brothers gave her, the magical portal clock glows. Someone steps through, and Daphne's instincts kick in because she thinks it might be the male lead arriving early. It's not. It's an assassin, one who announces he's going to kill her before moving on to Chloe. Daphne screams for her mother, for Lennox, for Ricardo. The brothers arrive immediately. The assassin orders them to stay back, and then a second threat emerges from the shadows. A child, another assassin they didn't see coming. Ricardo's magic catches him, but the boy breaks free with raw physical strength, startling everyone. And then he darts past them and drives a dagger into the other assassin's chest without hesitation. This child kills without flinching. When he turns toward the siblings, Chloe arrives and binds him in chains with gesture. One finger. Daphne looks at the boy. His eyes are purple. She recognizes him immediately. This is the male lead from the novel's second half. Lennox wants him eliminated. Ricardo agrees, but Chloe says to think carefully. And Daphne reads the room and understands her mother isn't going to kill him. In the original story, he becomes her successor. Except Daphne has completely misread the situation. Chloe is currently running through ways to punish this boy for attacking her daughter. She is not thinking about succession at all. Daphne realizes this might be her chance to end the story entirely. If the male lead dies now, maybe none of the rest of it happens. Maybe she's truly free. But she thinks about the orphanage, about every person who decided her life didn't matter because of who her mother was. And she realizes that if she lets this child die because it's convenient for her survival, she's no different from them. So she speaks up. She says not to kill him. He's a child. Her family agrees. Ricardo examines the boy with magic, which is painful, but when it fades, something changes in the boy's face. He passes out, and Ricardo explains that this child has been under hypnosis and hallucinations. He's not a natural killer. He's a victim. Chloe is furious, not at the child, but at whoever exploited him. They put him in an outdoor cage temporarily, safely. Ricardo works on breaking the remaining spell. Lennox prepares a truth serum, and Daphne watches her family work together and feels something she doesn't have a word for yet. She visits the boy the next morning. He won't respond to her greeting, but she notices that he flinches when she holds out food. His stomach growls. He hasn't eaten the food they left. She figures it out. He's afraid of adults, but she's not an adult. So she places the food inside the cage, gives him water, and waits. And the moment she tells him he can eat, he does. Immediately, with focus, she leaves her blanket with him because the forest is cold. And before she goes, she tells him she'll bring something even better next time. She hopes to know his name. She'll share hers too. She waves and walks away. His name, she eventually learns, is Ragnar, and he is possibly the most accidentally adorable boy in any story I have ever summarized. Chloe tells Daphne not to visit the cage again. Dangerous boy, raised as an assassin, unpredictable. Daphne uses her pleading eyes and negotiates. She won't enter the cage. She won't go without a companion. If he threatens her even once, she'll give up. Chloe sighs and agrees, because what mother wouldn't? Ricardo pushes her wheelchair into the forest, and Ragnar, upon seeing Daphne, immediately brightens like a puppy who heard the door open. She brings warm soup, bread, fruit, and Ricardo's homemade chocolate, which she privately finds too sweet, but cannot refuse because Ricardo is so proud of it. She sits on a blanket Ricardo laid for her, and she talks to Ragnar. He cautiously shares that the people who trained him used to beat him. She tells him she doesn't have the strength to hurt him, and then she introduces herself. He tells her his name, and then he eats everything she brought and makes the most delightful comments about how good it is. When he notices Ricardo standing behind Daphne, tall, red-eyed, imposing, Ragnar freezes. That size, those eyes, it reminds him of every adult who ever hit him. Ricardo, who has never had this experience, is visibly caught off guard. Daphne invites Ricardo to sit beside her. Ragnar calms almost immediately, and she understands exactly what just happened because she knows that fear too. She offers him hot chocolate and describes it as her favorite drink. He takes a sip. He finishes the entire mug, and his eyes go wide with a kind of joy that suggests he's just discovered the most important thing in the universe. He looks away when she keeps watching him, embarrassed, and asks if his eyes bother her. She shows him her bandaged legs and asks if hers bother him. He sees flowers when he looks at her. So she tells him she loves his purple eyes and plans to come see them every day. He turns bright red. These two are going to be the end of me. After several nights of Daphne sneaking out with hot cocoa and Ragnar waiting in the dark, their friendship deepens into something that feels more like gravity. She tells him one night that she revealed the future she saw, the book, the story, the version of events where she dies. She tells him he was supposed to be Chloe's heir. She tells him she decided to fight against the story rather than accept it. He doesn't care that she's the villainess's daughter. He holds her hands and says she's too kind to deserve punishment. He promises nobody will mock her again. He says he's going to protect her. And Daphne, who has had only herself to rely on for as long as she can remember, realizes she now has someone on her side. Then she collapses. Her chest tightens and she goes down fast. Ragnar, locked in his cage, can only scream her name. That same night, back at the estate, the family hears a commotion and finds Ragnar at the portal, his clothes torn, cage bars bent, holding an unconscious Daphne. He broke out. He could have escaped at any point. He stayed. Ricardo heals him. Chloe rushes Daphne inside. And Ricardo looks at this dangerous little boy trembling over his baby sister and reaches out his hand with a smile. When Daphne wakes up a week later, Ragnar is sitting right beside her, eyes red from crying. She calls him a dummy. He stayed in that cage every day waiting for her when he could have been free. He blames himself for her fever. She just smiles and finishes the sentence she never got to say. Ragnar is her friend. He hugs her immediately. No hesitation. Chloe asks Ragnar why he stayed in the cage. He says because he thought Daphne might be scared of him for what he almost did to her. He wanted to earn it. He also chose to break out when her health mattered more than his guilt. Chloe smiles at him. She's been looking for his brother, she says, and found that he's not a good person. So, Mama Chloe invites Ragnar to stay. He asks if she's joking. She says no, and Daphne grabs him in a bear hug, while he turns completely red. That night, Chloe watches her daughter sleep and looks at her legs, and she quietly grieves. They've tried everything, medicine, magic. Nothing works. Her only remaining option is someone she knows who might be able to help. She'll have to reach out. That man turns out to be Exilius Chainard, Grand Duke and Paladin, who bursts into the Benedito estate and immediately bursts into tears upon seeing Daphne, convinced she's his daughter because she has white hair like Chloe and gold eyes like him. She is not his daughter. But nobody can stop him from crying about it. Chloe screams his name and hits him multiple times for showing up unannounced. He sobs that she's been raising a child secretly, and he never knew. She screams that Daphne isn't his child. He is devastated. He and Chloe spent the night together before he left for war years ago. He never stopped wondering. He has every right to be confused. Honestly, they send the children outside. Axel composes himself. Chloe explains Daphne, the orphanage, the abuse, the flower test that injured her legs, how Daphne just smiled afterward and said losing the ability to walk was a small price for her life. Chloe trembles telling it, and Axel holds her hand and promises to do whatever it takes. He means it, even if it costs him his family name. Treatment at the temple begins, and Daphne gets a paladin escort on the day of her first visit. Then the escort walks in, and it's Axel, fully dressed in uniform, absolutely radiant and already crying preemptively. The Saint Johanna agrees to treat Daphne. Her hands glow and the warmth spreads into Daphne's legs. She tells Daphne to move them. Daphne tries, and she moves her foot, just slightly, but it moves. Everyone loses it, in the best way. While Axel speaks privately with the saint, Daphne sits alone in the sanctuary and takes off her hat, because it's stuffy. And immediately the door flies open, and a furious young prince storms in. He sees her golden eyes and demands to know if she's the Grand Duke's daughter. This is Crown Prince Simon. He's been angry his entire life because he doesn't have golden eyes, the symbol of the imperial family he's meant to lead. He believes Axel closed the temple to plot against him. He's a child carrying the weight of everyone's expectations and the constant reminder that he doesn't look the part. He's also, immediately, kind of heartbroken by Daphne's eyes. Not in a mean way, in the way that you are when you see something beautiful and it makes you feel the absence of something you never had. Axel clears up the misunderstanding. Daphne isn't his daughter. Simon is startled because they genuinely look alike. Later, they end up at the Grand Duke's estate after rain strands them, and Daphne gets her own perfectly fitted clothes and a warm meal. Then there's a knock at her door. It's Simon. He wants to apologize for frightening her the first time. He sits beside her. He asks if she hates her eye color. She says honestly that she prefers purple. It reminds her of someone she dislikes, meaning her biological father. Simon opens up about his own pain, how his whole family has golden eyes except him, how they say they don't care, but he hears what's said behind closed doors. He wonders if he's to blame for being born without something everyone values. Daphne asks him, if you didn't have those eyes, would your parents stop loving you? Would you stop being the crown prince? He thinks about it and realizes the answer is no. She tells him to stop absorbing other people's opinions. There is nothing wrong with him. He turns to her and asks her to swear it, and she does, and he starts crying again. He's wanted someone to say that his entire life. When he composes himself, he apologizes properly and introduces himself. She introduces herself. He walks back and forth, shy, wanting to ask if she'll be his friend, but not sure how to say it. She beats him to it. She asks if he'd like to be her second friend. He accepts, because he has no other choice. Axel walks in and finds a crown prince with puffy red eyes. When Simon proudly announces her friends now, Axel looks skeptical and the two begin bickering. Turns out they argue like actual family, and Daphne watches them with something warm in her chest. Axel gives her a butterfly brooch, the exact one she was admiring in the market earlier, that he quietly noticed. She beams at him. Simon blushes, looking at her smile. Axel cries, because it's the first time she smiled at him like that. These people are going to heal her, whether she's ready or not. After putting her to sleep, Axel receives word that the person spreading rumors to antagonize the crown prince is Duke Horones, making his daughter Simon's fiancé and now, apparently, eyeing even more influence. Axel is furious because his nephew doesn't deserve to be caught in adult scheming, especially a boy already under so much pressure. Back home, Daphne reports that she had a wonderful time at Axel's, that he sang her to sleep. Her brothers are shocked. Chloe thanks Axel and offers to repay the favor. He immediately, blushing, stuttering, asks her on a date. She says yes. He covers his mouth in disbelief and joy. Then she finds out he also bought Daphne a hairpin before she could, and the date is canceled. He tries again days later. He suggests they all go to the temple together. Chloe hesitates because she doesn't want to leave Ragnar alone. Daphne proposes they all go together. Ragnar is nervous about being seen in public with his unusual eyes. Daphne tells him to wear sunglasses and promises to personally handle anyone who gives him trouble. His confidence improves by approximately 1,000%. He looks unbelievably adorable in those sunglasses. And just like that, the four of them, Mom, Dad who isn't technically Dad yet, and two kids who found each other in the wreckage, walk into the world together. Daphne's legs keep getting better. Summer comes, then autumn, then a moment in the temple when Johanna tells Daphne to walk forward. She's trembling. It hurts. She takes a few steps. Axel grabs her and holds on like she's the most precious thing he's ever seen, because she is. To celebrate, they stop for cake. Rain traps them. Axel's palace becomes their overnight shelter. His head maid can't stop smiling because he's been bragging about Daphne to every single person on staff. And then there's a knock at Daphne's door. Simon, sheepish, came to make sure she's all right after the rain. He apologizes again for the first time they met. She accepts. The silence stretches. He asks if she hates having gold eyes. She says yes. She'd rather have purple. He opens up about his own insecurities, and she listens. And eventually she falls asleep while he's still talking. When Axel walks in and finds his nephew's face swollen from crying, he stares for a long moment before Simon proudly announces he and Daphne are now friends. Axel is skeptical. The two begin squabbling. Daphne sleeps through all of it peacefully. Life settles into something that almost looks like safety. Ragnar gets more comfortable. He helps Lennox with tasks and learns cooking from Ricardo. He knits Daphne a purple scarf and gloves, lopsided, the wrong length, out of season, and she wears them immediately and says she loves the color. Then a white-haired man bursts in, falls to his knees in front of Daphne, and starts crying. He claims to be her father. He has golden eyes, identical to hers. He calls Chloe honey and compliments her beauty through tears. Chloe hits him repeatedly. He is Exilius again, misidentifying himself because he genuinely wants to be her dad that badly. And Daphne realizes, watching all of this, that this is probably what it feels like to be loved by a father. Everything moves quickly now. The masquerade arrives. Daphne, Ragnar, and Simon go together. They play, they eat. They argue over who gets to carry Daphne during tag. Simon squats down to offer his back, and Ragnar kicks him. Daphne scolds both of them. Ragnar ends up carrying her anyway, delighted. Axel watches from a bench and smiles. Midway through the celebration, Daphne spots the orphanage children, the same ones who bullied her, watching from an alley, and she has a choice. She straightens up and walks past. She's Daphne Benedito now. She fought for this life. She is not the girl who hid from them. Then Maria Herones appears, her half-sister, though neither of them knows it yet. She's cheerful, a little oblivious, wearing a rabbit mask, and accidentally says something that annoys Ragnar. Daphne puts a lollipop in his mouth. The situation is managed. After the festival, Daphne sits in the carriage and worries. If the story continues on some version of an original track, Ragnar might fall for Maria. She doesn't want that. And the moment she notices that she doesn't want it, she gets very quiet. Ragnar reaches over and takes her hand. Are you okay? She is not thinking clearly. Yes, she lies. Fine. Time passes. 1 year since she arrived at the Benedito estate. 1 year since she chose to live. She and Ragnar follow the family into the woods and discover the dragon prison, an ancient place where a legendary dragon was once held captive. Chloe warns them sternly that once the door closes, there's no way out without the dragon's permission. It's open now, but don't test it. Ragnar walks closer, like he's being pulled there. Ricardo grabs him back. But Ragnar looks confused by his own reaction, like he recognizes something he shouldn't know. That night, Daphne can't sleep. She goes to find Chloe and asks about her mother's burial. Chloe has been waiting for this question. She explains that Freya's remains were found and cremated, and then she says something that changes everything. Freya was a princess of the Oswald Empire. She had royal blood. Nobody in the novel mentioned this. Freya was imprisoned during a civil war in Oswald, while her brothers fought for the throne. And the rumors, the ones calling her a murderer and a witch, they were built on nothing. Chloe believes they were fabricated. Daphne already knew it in her bones. Axel arrives that night with a complicated expression. He finds out Daphne is Freya's daughter. He doesn't know what to do with that yet. He leaves the room. Daphne goes quietly to Ragnar's room and cries herself to sleep beside him. He promises to keep her nightmares away. Kiki curls up between them. Axel eventually asks Chloe why she never told him the truth about Daphne. He's hurt. Not because she hid it, but because it means she didn't fully trust him. Chloe trembles. She's terrified that if the truth comes out, Daphne will suffer again. She's been carrying this alone because fear made her careful. And Axel holds her and says, "I will protect whatever secret you have." After that, they're different. Something opens between them that had always been almost there. Daphne wakes up and finds Ragnar with a fever. She tells him to rest. She'll go see Simon's play today without him. In the carriage, she apologizes to Axel for hiding the truth from him. He tells her, clearly, that she did nothing wrong. Her mother being called a villainess doesn't make Daphne one. He swears never to abandon her. And he reminds her with a smile that he still wants to be her dad. The play turns out to be about her parents. A love story between a couple, interrupted by a jealous woman who used every cruel tactic available until she died alone in a tower. The villainess, her mother, staged for the public's entertainment by Duke Horones himself, who commissioned it as a declaration of his love for his mistress. Daphne sits trembling and can't breathe. Simon is immediately concerned. And then Horones approaches to greet Simon. His wife Onions follows. And then Maria arrives and praises her father for the beautiful play he made for her mother. Simon's jaw tightens. He says, clearly and calmly, that airing noble family scandals publicly is never acceptable. Maria interjects, her father fell in love with her mother first. That's what matters. The Duke agrees. Simon says, you still had a child with your previous wife. The Duke dismisses it, claims the child belongs to Freya alone. Simon tells the Duke that if he'd simply sent Freya's daughter to her homeland, the poor child wouldn't have had to die in an orphanage. He doesn't know he's sitting next to her. Daphne can't stay quiet. She asks the Duke how he'd feel if the villainess's daughter was still alive. He grimaces and says the thought alone disgusts him. She runs, stumbles into the street. A carriage nearly hits her. Axel catches her at the last second, but she's shaking and cannot stop. That line from the book comes back to her. No one can avoid death. She defied her fate once, but death keeps finding her. She's home, feverish, when she goes looking for Ragnar and finds him in the corner of his room, acting wrong. His eyes have changed, more reptilian, sharper, and when she reaches for him, he slams her to the floor. Then he's pointing a dagger at her, sobbing, body moving like it isn't his to control. Ricardo arrives and suspends him in the air with magic. Daphne lies on the floor and thinks. Maybe she never really escaped the story at all. That night she overhears her family talking about Ragnar. It's not hypnosis this time. Whatever is happening to him. Ricardo doesn't understand it. And Ragnar, knowing he can't trust himself, went to the dragon prison alone. Daphne understands immediately. She did this. She kept him near her when the story wanted him on a different path. His changes are connected to her interference. She goes to the forest, finds him sulking inside the cage with the steel door open. She confesses everything. The book, her death, her choice to fight fate, his role in the story's second half, the happy ending he was supposed to have with someone else. She tells him she can't keep him near her because one day he might kill her and she needs to live. Ragnar refuses to believe it. He begs her to stop. She screams that she wants to live, that she doesn't want to be afraid of dying anymore. And Ragnar looks at her and he thinks, if I disappear, she'll be safe. He smiles at her, wipes her tears, closes the door. The prison goes dark. Daphne screams his name. No answer. She runs back for help. The next morning, the dragon prison is gone. Only blood on the ground where it stood. For weeks, she's barely functional. And then Chloe sits her down and offers to leave the Clemens Empire entirely, to travel the world, to give Daphne a fresh start, because she knows her daughter is breaking apart here. Before agreeing, Daphne asks Chloe to finish the truth about her parents. She learns that evidence was found in Horones' basement, bodies, traces of curse, the groundwork for framing Freya. The Duke fabricated the charges, and Oswald's emperor knew Freya was innocent and destroyed the evidence anyway, because a dead princess was more politically convenient than a complicated truth. Daphne makes her decision. She won't run from it. She wants to go to Oswald. She wants to clear her mother's name. And she wants to be stronger so the people she loves never get hurt because of her again. Simon gets the news of both losses the same morning. Ragnar gone. The Benedetto family gone. He sits on his couch, and the pieces connect in his mind. The Duke with golden eyes. The child who survived an orphanage fire. He knows. He knows Daphne is Freya's daughter. And he knows he's the only one left who can protect her. He refuses the engagement to Maria in front of the imperial court and says clearly, if the family needs golden eyes, he knows a girl whose eyes are far more brilliant than Maria's. He's going to wait for her. Out in a forest, a blue dragon senses a disturbance and transforms into human form to investigate. He finds Ragnar, alive. Ragnar wakes up and immediately demands to know where Daphne is. Joseph, the dragon, explains that Ragnar is a dragon too, proven by his purple vertical slit pupils, his physical changes, his second awakening. He's been unconscious for 3 years. He looks like a teenager now. He's still technically a child by dragon standards. He couldn't care less about any of that. He needs to find Daphne. Joseph explains something important. Humans have shorter lifespans than dragons. But if a human forms a companionship bond with dragon, they live the same lifespan. Ragnar wants to know everything about this bond immediately. His master tells him it takes time to understand. Ragnar decides to get stronger first. Strong enough to stand beside her without fear. And then he'll find her. 5 years later. Daphne is 13. She's been traveling with the family, expanding the business, visiting temples for treatment. Her legs are healed now. She's still too scared to open Simon's letters. She knows she'll have to go back eventually. She's at a coliseum in a foreign empire when she spots a red-haired girl effortlessly defeating someone twice her size. This is Fleur, a combat slave who was once a noble before her family was executed for political reasons. Daphne wants to buy her contract and free her. Fleur says no. Daphne comes back the next day. No. The day after. No. She comes for days. She watches Fleur fight and notices that she only ever uses the hilt of her sword. A knight who refuses to cut down people without cause. Daphne respects it deeply. She tells Fleur, if you become my knight, you'll only ever fight to protect, not to perform. Fleur asks for time to think. Daphne gives it to her. When she exits the Colosseum, a masked fighter is standing outside. Kiki immediately climbs into his arms. Since the fox refuses to leave, the masked man walks Daphne back to her hotel. He asks about becoming a guard for the Benedetto family. She refuses immediately. She doesn't trust someone hiding their face. He takes off the mask. He looks exactly like Ragnar. His name is Nars. He's 17. His personality is identical. He blushes when she looks at him. He can't stop staring at her. Even Chloe comments on the resemblance when she arrives. The situation at the Colosseum escalates when Fleur and her Mendices are forced to fight each other to the death. Daphne shows up anyway, gets knocked on the head, wakes up in a cell with Fleur apologizing. Daphne is unbothered. She's already planned an 11 p.m. extraction at the main gate. Her brothers arrive like a thunderstorm. Ricardo burns the magical controller. Lennox handles the rest. Every combat slave walks free. Emile, the owner, is arrested. And Fleur wakes up in a hospital, overwhelmed, swearing her life to her master. Nars gets his reward, a 1-year contract as Benedetto family guard. Ricardo is suspicious of him immediately. Lennox thanks him. Nars mutters under his breath that they haven't changed at all. He knows exactly who they are. On the ship to Oswald, Nars announces boldly that he specifically wants to be Daphne's personal guard. She asks casually if he worries about her. He says yes, honestly, without hesitation. She thinks about Ragnar for the rest of the voyage. She finally opens Simon's letters. They're all him waiting, telling her he's still there. She writes back for the first time. In Oswald, the port is deserted due to civil war. The village leader begs him for help. Prices are inflated. Trade has collapsed. There are dungeon problems, drought, desperation. Chloe is conflicted. Business isn't charity. Daphne has a plan. Sell necessities at cost, limited quantities, short term. Source Oswald's unique goods cheaply and export them. Join the merchant union to avoid noble pushback. And find a way to supply the imperial family too, since the civil war is tipping. It works. The Benedetto name becomes known throughout the empire. Daphne practices archery in the evenings now, borrowing time from sleep. Nars helps her without being asked. She notices a scent and immediately redirects her thoughts. At the competition, her opponent scores a perfect 10. She steadies herself, heightens her focus, scores a perfect 10, and then her arrow split his in half. She later realizes Nars knew about her injured leg without being told. She files that away. She's 19 when they meet again. She's doing well. She's vice president of the student council at Oswald Academy. She's leading dungeon expeditions, running business negotiations, playing politics at a level that would terrify most adults. And when Maria Hirones arrives as an exchange student, eager and friendly and wanted to connect, Daphne is polite, guarded, and watchful during a dungeon run. The group splits because Castor makes it competitive. The floor cracks. Daphne falls. And as she falls, she thinks about how hard she fought to become the master of her own life. She thinks it's unfair that the story might take the ending from her just when she almost has it. She thinks about Ragnar, and Ragnar appears. He catches her. He holds her gently and tells her he never felt resentment toward her. Not once. She breaks into tears and apologizes for everything. For pushing him away. For driving him into the dragon prison. For years of guilt she's carried silently. He cups her face and says, "Everything I did was my choice." Then he tells her he's a dragon. He explains the companion bond. He kneels in front of her and asks her to be his companion. Because if she bonds with him, she'll never have to fear death again. She's a bit preoccupied with escaping the pit first. But she heard him. Every word. Back on the surface, Daphne introduces Ragnar to everyone properly. He moves into the Benedito estate. The family reunion is joyful and chaotic, and Ricardo cries and tries to pretend he isn't. Simon is also there. He stares at Ragnar for a long time, and then says he's upset about the note. The note Ragnar left when he disappeared years ago. Ragnar explains what happened. The day Joseph arrived, the curse, the awakening, all of it. He tells Simon about Bertold, his half-brother, who murdered their dragon father and cursed Ragnar to destroy everything around him. The three of them go to the tree where the time capsule is buried. 11 years later, Simon finds a wish-granting ring and breaks it in 3, wishing for their friendship to last forever. He gives 1 piece to each of them. Ragnar finds the childhood portraits he made, so he'd remember their happiest moments. Daphne finds a letter she wrote to their future selves and the stamp. The orphanage stamp, still unidentified, still important. They carry home together. Months later, the Duke makes contact. He wants a visit. Daphne lets him in and listens as he says he never knew she was carrying his child when she was imprisoned. She reminds him that she came to him after her mother died, and he treated her like garbage. He says he regrets it. She asks where her mother is buried. He goes silent. She shows him the door. He tries to get angry. She tells him that she and Maria's birthdays are only months apart. He cheated on her mother while she was pregnant. He has the audacity to be offended by her tone. She sees no reason to continue the conversation. Simon discovers a seal, the stamp pattern from the orphanage documents, hidden under the Emperor's desk, a secret compartment. They plan to investigate on the day of the imperial birthday banquet. Before that, Daphne and Ragnar find Joseph dead. Ragnar is devastated and certain Bertold did it. All Daphne can do is hold him. During the banquet, Bertold appears behind the Emperor. Ragnar chases him. Daphne and Fleur follow. The trail leads outside, where Onioness is trying to convince Maria to abandon her friendship with Daphne, because it's what the story requires. Daphne interrupts her and says directly, "This is real life. Everyone around you is a real person, not fiction you created." When Onioness sees her daughter crying, reality breaks through the story she's been telling herself. Bertold grabs Daphne and flies away. Simon and Ragnar discover the sealed evidence. The deal the previous emperor made with Bertold and the separate deal with Duke Hirones. Bertold had been paid to eliminate Simon's grandfather and pave a certain political path. The trail goes back further than anyone knew. Ragnar pursues his brother into the forest. Daphne pursues Ragnar. She arrives to find them fighting. Fire scoring the trees, the air scorched. Bertold stabs Onioness as she tries to escape through the teleportation circle. And then he turns on Ragnar again. Onioness dies. She spent her last moment realizing she genuinely loved the Duke and never told him. Ragnar's awakening curse activates in the fight. To break it, he uses the spell Joseph prepared for this moment, which requires him to stab himself. He moves toward the river to ensure the curse doesn't reach Daphne. Bertold laughs. Daphne shoots him in the back. He uses his own power as a shield. She shoots again. He melts. He drops. She sprints to the river to grab Ragnar. The water pulls them both under. A glowing light surrounds them, and when they surface, every wound on Ragnar's body is healed. The companionship bond has formed. They made it. The aftermath is swift. The emperor is arrested. The duke is stripped of his title and sentenced to the prison tower. Maria and Casta give up their noble status and their fortune, choosing to see the world on their own terms. Freya's name is cleared publicly, and her remains are placed in the imperial charnel house. And then one evening, quietly, without ceremony, Axel proposes to Chloe. She says yes. The whole family celebrates, and it's loud and warm, and full of the kind of joy that only makes sense after everything they've survived to get there. Later, after the orphanage director is investigated and sentenced to life imprisonment, after the abuse is documented and its victims are accounted for, Ragnar takes over as the new director. The place where Daphne suffered most is now under his care. And Daphne, in a dungeon during the story's final stretch, encounters a mirror that pulls Ragnar into his nightmare, a version of Daphne falling from the cliff, with him trying to follow her into the dark. She finds him there and kisses him to bring him back. When they wake up, he holds her from behind and tells her quietly that he likes her, that he wants to spend his life with her, that he's been waiting to say it for a long time. She's not quite ready to name what she feels, but she cups his face and asks, "Do you want to try dating?" He says yes. Immediately, completely, they share a kiss and something that has been building since a purple butterfly guided a frightened 6-year-old through a dark forest finally settles into its permanent shape. At the very end, the story closes on them together. Daphne knows there will be challenges. She knows the world doesn't become simple just because the worst of it is over. But she's not afraid anymore. She chose to live. She chose to fight. She rewrote every line that was meant to end her, and she has Ragnar. Thank you for watching until the end. I know this one was long. I know it was heavy in places. But I think that's the point. Because just like Daphne, most of us are carrying something. A past that told us we don't deserve good things. A story someone else wrote about who we are. And what this manga quietly asks is, what if you rewrote it? What if you picked your own name, walked through the dark, and chose to live on your own terms? If that hits somewhere real for you, please like this video and subscribe. It genuinely helps. I'll see you in the next one.